Hey guys, it's Dale Calvert. I appreciate you being here. Today, in the world, the one thing that we need more than anything else is unstoppable entrepreneurs. Unstoppable entrepreneurs. Glen Turner was called the Unstoppable American. And everywhere I've been the last 20 years, this framed photo of Mr. Turner has been with me in whatever office or home that I've been in. And I've been shocked. Today is actually the anniversary of his death. He died 2 years ago today. And I've been shocked at the number of entrepreneurs and especially people in the direct sales network marketing niche who've never really heard or never really studied or never really learned about Glen Turner. He was unbelievable. There is nobody walking the planet that spoke into my entrepreneurial journey and made a bigger difference than Glen Turner. I've had a lot of mentors. Most I've never had the opportunity to spend much time with, but I did Mr. Turner. And he was one of a kind. One of a kind. Those that knew him, they didn't like him. They loved him. He was one of a kind human being. And I just want to walk you through some of his history and give you some resources. Because if you're on this entrepreneurial journey, there is nobody that I believe that can take your mindset to the point of understanding what it really means today, in today's environment, to be unstoppable like Glen W Turner. As I mentioned earlier, today is the anniversary of the death of Glen Turner. And I just want to share some thoughts and some ideas and just really encourage people that have not taken the time to study this man and his journey to study it. The first time I ever talked to Mr. Turner, he and I were scheduled to speak in an event, and the promoter, Michael Penland, actually hooked us on the phone. And I remember calling. He gave me his number and we had the time to call, and I was nervous. I don't ever remember, and this is way after. I mean, I've built organizations over 60,000 people, made millions of dollars in network marketing, and I hadn't recalled being nervous like that in a long, long time. And I remember sitting down to call him for the first time, and he picked up the phone. I said, "Mr. Turner, this is Dale Calvert. We were scheduled a call regarding the event we're both speaking at in Florida." And the first thing he said to me, he said, "The preacher stabbed you in the back, didn't he?" And my mind was, how does he know that? How does he understand that? And he said, "I've been hearing about this kid in Kentucky for a few years." He said, "I've been following you." And he said, "What happened to you is the same thing that happened to me. So what do we need to talk about? How can I help you, son?" And I'll never forget that, and it blew my mind. And that's just how he was. He spoke into people's lives. And he didn't talk just to hear himself talk. He really was one of the most unique people that I've ever been around in my life. When you look up positive thinking, if you looked up the word positive thinking in the dictionary, Glen Turner's picture should be there. I don't know if he ever allowed a negative thought to enter his mind. But for those of you that don't know, he was born to an unwed mother. His dad was a sharecropper in South Carolina or Georgia. When he was 17, he joined the Navy. He went to the train station for the Navy to pick him up to get to where he was supposed to be, his barracks. He didn't even own a pair of shoes. Had on a pair of overalls, a t-shirt, no shoes. That's how he started when he was 17 years old. He was born in 1934. When he got out of the Navy, he started in direct sales with Holiday Magic. Now, which seems ridiculous because he was born with a cleft palate. He stuttered when he talked. He was made fun of in school his whole life. So he quit school when he was in the 8th grade. And when he was 17, again, joined the Navy, came back, got involved in direct sales. And the number one salesperson in that company was Zig Ziglar. A year later, he knocked Zig out of the number one spot, and Glen Turner was the number one salesperson in that company. And again, he could not speak because of the birth defect. And, you know, so that in 1970, he started his own company called Coscott, and then in 72 he started a company called Dare to Be Great, which was a motivational seminar company. And this is at a time when there was really no government regulations on network marketing, and a lot of people were saying this guy's a scam artist, he's a con artist, blah blah blah, and there was a lot of controversy. This was before the Amway decision that legalized network marketing, but the guy was gaining so much power. He had his own, he developed a net worth by 1970, it was around $300 million. He had Glen Turner companies, had multiple companies, he had his own airlines, and he was doing major events in stadiums. And he would do one at 12 noon in one part of the country. He would get in his Learjet, he would do another one at 2 o'clock, and he'd do another one at 8 o'clock that night. I mean, he was doing sometimes 3 events in a day with packed out auditoriums all over the United States. And guys, this was at a time in the 70s, and honestly what happened, he was getting so much of a following that the government literally got scared of this guy and was afraid he was going to run for political office, and if he had, he would have won. They ended up coming after him. He spent time in jail, and if you haven't heard his story, it is worth reading. This is a book, Turner, The King of Network Marketing. You can probably find it maybe on eBay or Amazon. It is absolutely an unbelievable story. So when I was building, when I started actually in the 80s, and at this time, Glen had already gone and went bankrupt, lost everything. And I didn't know him, never heard the name Glen Turner. And in 1980, when we started having some success in Shackley, after 3 years of major struggle, but after we started having success, and people would invite us to speak in our region in West Virginia and Tennessee and Ohio and whatever, and started to speak a little bit after becoming the youngest sales coordinator in Shackley, you know, I was so into Jim Rohn, so into Zig Ziglar, Les Brown, major into personal development. And during those early years, people would come up to me, and the name that I heard more than any name, the people that said, you know, the person that made the most impact on my life, over and over and over, I would say Zig. No, Jim Rohn, no. It had to be Les Brown. No, it was Glen Turner. And these people had got involved with him in the 70s and Dare to Be Great, or Coscott. And the impact that man had on other people created such a curiosity for me, because I never had really heard anything about him. He built his own closed culture. He affected the lives of a lot of people, but he wasn't, you know, you couldn't find his materials on Nightingale Conant or what have you. And then it created a curiosity. And then somebody gave me a videotape. It was a movie of his life, a VHS. And, you know, as I did more research, I found out that, I can't remember their names, but the little dwarfs, that's probably not politically correct to say that, but some of you remember their infomercial. They were multimillionaires in the real estate business. They used to do infomercials back in the 80s. Charles Gibbons, who wrote the classic New York Times bestseller, Wealth Without Risk, Ted Turner, Turner Broadcasting, and many other self-made millionaires that you would know today started with Dare to Be Great and Glen Turner. And anyway, I watched the VHS, and I would get on my treadmill, and for 2 years, every morning, for 2 years, I watched the Glen Turner story. I was on a treadmill, and I had a TV up, mounted above my treadmill, and I would put in Glen Turner, and I watched his story over and over and over and over and over, that VHS that somebody had given me. And then when eBay came out, I was able to find some of his old materials, and a friend of mine in New Jersey, which some of you I'm sure have heard of, Joe Schroeder, Joe and I would talk on the phone all the time, and we started talking about Glen Turner. And then one day he called me, and he was so fired up. He said, "Calvert, did you get the package?" I said, "No, I haven't got the package." "What are you talking? Calvert, you haven't gotten the package yet?" "No." He said, "Call me when you get the package." I said, "Well, what's in the package?" He said, "Call me when you get the package." A couple days later, I get this box of cassettes, and they were all from Dare to Be Great, all Glen Turner audios. And Joe calls me back. He said, "Did you get the package?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I took care of you, didn't I?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I'll never be able to replace what you've done for me." He said, "But I was so excited to get those to you." He said, I got some bootleg copies of them. And I listened to those for 2 years. That was all I listened to. So that was my experience with Glen Turner. Then, this was probably during the New Image days, and we were rolling and built, just traveling everywhere, and just we had the network marketing world in the palm of our hands, really. And then all that blew up, and then a few years later after that, I started speaking at different events, and a gentleman that had heard me in Atlanta invited me to come and speak at an event. And he was telling me, "Well, who's going to be there?" And he said, "Well, Ryan Dice." Well, nobody knew who Ryan Dice was then. Everybody does today. Mike Filsaime is going to be one of our speakers. I'm like, "I don't know who Mike Filsaime is." And he's saying, "What I'm trying to do," he said, "I want to hook up 2 speakers, and I want to do conference calls building up to this event where I have 2 speakers on." And I said, "Well, who else is going to speak?" And he said, "I'm trying to get Glen Turner." And I said, "Michael, if you can get Glen Turner and I can get on a call with him," I said, you have no idea how important that would be for me." And he did, and we talked, and Glen and I talked a couple of times a year. We spoke at different events from that point on, and he and I talked a couple of times a year until his death. And the thing that I've been thinking about, trying to do some type of tribute to him. So what I'm going to do in this video is just link some videos and maybe some websites that you should visit, just to learn more about this guy. He was the most remarkable human being that I have ever personally been around, because he spoke directly into my life. He knew where I was. He knew what I was thinking. He knew what I was struggling with at any given time. And he was unbelievable. He was an unbelievable human being. And it saddens me that today, I think I could have missed the influence of Glen Turner in my life very easily. I could have missed it. And there's going to be people in future generations and in this generation now that are missing the influence of this remarkable human being, Glen Turner. So I'll leave some links in the description, and I hope that you'll take some time, because he is someone that is worth studying. Here's why. I'm starting to realize, and I'll be talking more about this, that you have to get into a state. See, some of you have heard me talk about the Great American Box, and that's where most entrepreneurs live. But there's a lot of established, credible entrepreneurs that have never learned, and I've never heard anybody talk about this, but so there's these boxes, and the first box is the American box, where you're worried about your friends and your relatives and your neighbors and all these people, and that prevents most people from ever having any type of entrepreneurial success, because they're too worried what somebody else is thinking about them. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of what somebody else thinks. That's the first box. But if you break out of that box, I never really realized it until recently, there's another box. And that box is the socially acceptable box. And that box used to be like, you had the Great American box, the socially acceptable box. Well, the socially acceptable box, if I tried to draw it now, I'd have to go 2 miles down the road, 2 miles, and it's so huge now. And by propaganda, by intentionally, unintentionally, I don't know, I don't care, I just know it's big. And I know that Glen Turner and the great people that really make a huge impact on this world are people that live outside of the socially acceptable box. And I'll talk more about this in future podcasts or videos or whatever, but I see this clearer now than I ever have. And the thing that I really want to communicate is to entrepreneurs. You know, they call Glen the Unstoppable American. I'll put a link to that audio that he did. You know, hair lip from South Carolina, was not Ivy League educated, but man, his emotional intelligence and his determination is unparalleled. He was one of a kind. He was one of a kind. And what I've seen, and again, this past 60 days or so, I've talked to a lot of very accomplished entrepreneurs. Very accomplished. More probably in the last 60 days than I have in any 60-day period in the last 5 years. And the thing that I'm hearing in their voice more than ever is uncertainty. Uncertainty. And I don't want to say lack of confidence, but uncertainty about what's happening in the world, what's going to happen to the stock market, what's going to happen to inflation. Can we survive 3 more years with a derelict in the White House and all this other stuff? And there's a lot of uncertainty, and I'm talking about with established, credible, successful entrepreneurs. And I sincerely believe that what the world needs more now than at any other time in history is unstoppable entrepreneurs that rely on faith and wisdom of the ages, success principles. And that inspiration has been lacking for years, and now more than ever, not just in any particular niche, but unstoppable entrepreneurs. And some of you may be watching this, and I'm talking to you, and the world needs you. They need your passion, your belief, your reliance on that which is true, and to spread the word, because there's so many fake gurus all over the place. We know the madness in the world that's all around us. We see it every day, but unstoppable entrepreneurs are so needed in today's environment. Glen Turner was the first. He was the first, the unstoppable American. It's time for some people that have never been exposed to his philosophies, teachings, and understandings to spend some time with what this guy was all about. I think it'll make a great impact on you, your business, and the entrepreneurial world in general. I'll talk to you soon. This is Dale Calvert. If you like this, whatever you're supposed to do on YouTube, smash the like button and hit the thumbs up. I would appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.